I think this movie might actually piss a lot of people off, but not me. Welcome back, and once again, thank you for trusting me with your full spoiler movie reviews. That thing I do where I watch movies and then I tell you all about them. As always, I am unpaid and unsponsored. And spoilers, all the spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, you can go ahead and scroll. I won't be offended. Spoilers. Okay, here we go. Before we even get started, I know everybody was waiting on my review for We Live in Time, the new movie from Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. And I know there were people looking forward to the review for this one in particular, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The closer it got time to go see this movie, the more I really just didn't want to see it. I wanted to see Conclave, and I knew that if I walked into We Live in Time, I was going to sit there and I wasn't going to be able to concentrate because I was going to wish that I was in Conclave. But now that I've seen Conclave, I'll probably hit this one up either tomorrow or maybe Sunday, but I will have it done by the end of the weekend, just not tonight. Now we can get into Conclave. So what's this about? Okay, so the Pope died, and Ralph Fiennes is the Dean of the Cardinals, which I guess is like the assistant manager. His job is to preside and lead over the conclave while they vote for a new Pope. Ralph Fiennes is the Dean of Cardinals, and his whole job is basically to preside over and manage the conclave, which is where all the cardinals come together after the Pope dies to elect a new Pope. Now, some of them will campaign to be the next Pope, but mostly they just vote, and it's like a very secret religious ritual thing. Well, you have a list of about 6 frontrunners. It may have been 5. Well, you have this first guy who was like a frontrunner. He was doing really well. He was almost at 72 votes. And then it actually came out that he had a sexual relationship with a 19-year-old when he was in his 30s. And they had a kid together, and the kid was being raised in secret. Now, because it is a sex scandal, they basically had him withdraw for his candidacy of the Pope because it's the Catholic Church, and they didn't want any more sex scandals. Then you had the second guy who was John Lithgow, Lord Farquaad. He had a good amount of votes, but come to find out that not only was he fired by the Pope like the night before he died, or the night he died, but he was buying votes from the cardinals. And he was also the one that arranged for the nun that the other cardinal had the sexual relationship with to come over to basically scare off that particular cardinal. So he was doing a whole bunch of collusion shit. And then you had Stanley Tucci, who just didn't have the votes. Then Ralph Fiennes started getting votes as the Dean of the Cardinals. The problem is he didn't want the papacy. He was actually getting ready to leave Rome, and I think he was getting ready to leave church altogether because he was having doubts. So that left it down to 2 guys. There was one guy, Testarossa, something along those lines, who was very into old school Catholicism, very conservative, which most of the cardinals didn't want because that would basically reverse 60 years of progression within the Catholic Church. And then a Cardinal Benitez, I think that's how you said his name. Sorry, y'all, I'm going off memory here. Who was actually a cardinal in Kabul and Afghanistan and the Congo. So Benitez is ultimately elected the Pope, which is really cool. But then Ralph Fiennes gets some information about Benitez because Benitez was paid for by the Pope himself out of the Pope's private account to receive some kind of treatment in Geneva at a hospital. But ultimately, Benitez didn't go through with the surgery. It wasn't just a surgery, they said treatment. So Ralph Fiennes is like, what was that for? So he has to go and ask Benitez about the whole thing. And come to find out, it's a laparoscopic hysterectomy. Which, if you don't know what a hysterectomy is, that is the removal of female sex organs. Ultimately, Benitez had external male organs and internal female organs. And the Pope knew about that even through his priesthood and all that. The Pope offered for him to have the surgery to remove the female organ. But ultimately, Benitez went against that because he felt like he was doing something against God's will. And Ralph Fiennes is like, okay. And then he got to be Pope. The end. Now, did I like it? Yes, I did. Very, very much. But this comes with a great big asterisk. This is a very niche movie for a very niche interest. Meaning, if you're not into theology or religious studies as a whole, or just talky movies where all they do is basically talk throughout the whole thing, you're going to be bored as fuck. Because that's all this is. We are talking and we're going through a religious procedure. That is this entire movie. If neither of these things interest you, you're gonna have a bad time. I would say if you were into the political side of the show The Borgias on Netflix, you're gonna like this. And then, like, if you liked Angels and Demons, but you didn't like all the interesting parts with, like, Tom Hanks, all you wanted was, like, the church part, you'd be good to go. But if you don't like either of those things, this is going to be a hard no for y'all. I will say, though, there is this one thing, and it kind of makes me laugh, honestly. Do y'all remember in Long Legs how everybody was talking about how the girl, you could hear, like, breathing throughout the whole movie, and she was breathing so hard you thought she was going to pass out? We have a little bit of the same problem in this because you can hear Ralph Fiennes breathing throughout this whole movie, and it's kind of hard, and I was a little worried about him. Just something a little goofy. So with all of this into account, and as a general audience, I'm gonna give it probably a 3 out of 10, just because it's really not for everybody. But as a niche score for somebody who would be interested in said subject matter, it's a 10 out of 10. Does that make sense? So 3 out of 10 / 10 out of 10. I had a good time. Okay, bye. Hail, Holy Queen, and something, oh, Regina.